The limits of control. Understanding what we truly control. We live in a world where control, the act of shaping events, others, and circumstances to fit our desires, is often seen as the ultimate expression of power. But the Stoic understanding of control is both humbling and liberating. We control very little, yet we are in full control of what matters most. We cannot control the weather. We cannot control the economy. We cannot control the actions or thoughts of others. This is a truth that many find unsettling, especially in a culture that thrives on the illusion of control. But for the Stoic, the acceptance of this reality is not defeat. It is the beginning of true freedom. Epictetus, in his discourses, famously declares, "Some things are up to us and some things are not." He goes on to explain that what is up to us are our judgments, our desires, our actions, and our responses to what happens. These are the domains where our power lies. The world outside, the world of events, outcomes, and others' actions, is not ours to command. Consider a modern scenario. You are at work, facing a deadline that is becoming increasingly difficult to meet. Your boss, your colleagues, and the demands of the project are all external forces pressing down upon you. What can you control in this situation? Not the deadlines, not your boss's expectations, but you can control your reaction to pressure. You can choose how to organize your time, how to prioritize tasks, and how you manage your stress. This is the essence of Stoic practice. The question is not how to change the world to your will, but how to change your response to the world in a way that aligns with virtue and wisdom. You are responsible for how you navigate external events, for the thoughts you entertain, for the decisions you make, and not much else. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who could command armies, understood this deeply. In his Meditations, he writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He is pointing to the fact that no matter the external turbulence, the only true mastery lies within. When we can accept that, we stop wasting energy on futile attempts to control the uncontrollable. Instead, we focus on controlling ourselves, the only thing that we can truly influence. This recognition that control is limited, that our power extends only to our own judgments and actions, does not render us passive or helpless. On the contrary, it enables us to act with clarity and purpose. In a world where most are buffeted by circumstances, the Stoic is like a calm eye in the storm, unwavering in their capacity to choose how they will respond. This brings us to an essential distinction. There is a freedom in acknowledging the limits of control. It is not resignation. It is a realization that your true strength lies in what is within your power, your decisions, your resilience, your wisdom. Everything outside of that, it is not yours to command, and it never will be. The limits of control, understanding what we truly control. There is a quiet kind of suffering in the modern world, not born of violence or hunger, but of the illusion that we can control everything. That if we just try harder, plan smarter, read enough books, optimize our schedules, we will finally wrest life into submission. But life does not yield to force. It moves according to its own rhythm, indifferent to our wishes, our effort, our expectations. The Stoics, writing in the midst of wars, plagues, and exile, understood this deeply. Epictetus spoke plainly. Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control and some things are not. In that sentence lies the foundation of all Stoic thought. What, then, is in our control? Not the markets, not the behavior of our family, not the thoughts of strangers on the internet, not aging, not death, not the weather, not disease, not traffic. These are externals. Indifference, as the Stoics would call them, and no amount of resistance will bend them permanently to our will. But what is within our grasp, fully and always, are our judgments, our choices, our character. You can decide to speak truthfully, even when lying would be easier. You can act with patience, even when provoked. You can maintain your principles even under pressure. These are not small things. They are everything. In a society obsessed with outcomes, it is a radical act to focus on intention. To say, I may not win, but I will act justly. I may not be praised, but I will speak honestly. I may not be understood, but I will remain clear within myself. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "Just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter." He was emperor of the known world, and still he knew, power over others is fragile. Power over the self is enduring. Consider the modern workplace. You may be passed over for promotion, blamed unfairly, subjected to politics you cannot influence. What remains yours is your discipline, your effort, your refusal to compromise your values for fleeting approval. These are not lesser victories. They are the victories that matter. Control, in the Stoic sense, is not about domination. It is about ownership. owning your will, your attention, your purpose. That is where your freedom lives. And when you stop trying to control what lies outside that boundary, you begin to reclaim the energy wasted on anxiety, manipulation, and resentment. You begin to live in alignment with nature, not as a passive observer but as a rational actor, making choices from clarity rather than fear. The world will move as it will, people will come and go, storms will rise, time will take what it takes, but you remain, not untouched, but unbroken. You are not in control of all things, but you are responsible for the one thing that matters, how you meet each moment, and that is enough. The nature of others, why people seek to control. The impulse to control others is not new. It is not a product of modernity or capitalism or technology, though each may give it new tools. It is as old as fear itself. At its root, control is rarely about power for its own sake. It is about uncertainty, and the human mind, untrained and unaware, will do anything to escape the discomfort of uncertainty, even if it must manipulate, deceive, or dominate. People try to control others when they feel powerless over themselves. The insecure parent dictates every aspect of a child's life, not out of malice, but fear that the child will fail, or worse, reflect the parent's own unresolved failures. A partner resorts to jealousy, guilt, or silent treatment, not because they love purely, but because they fear abandonment. A manager micromanages not because they distrust you, but because they distrust chaos. And because they have not yet realized that trust in others begins with mastery of their own mind, Marcus Aurelius observed, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." He was not being cynical. He was being clear. He understood that if you expect people to be anything other than what human nature has always shown itself to be, you will live in constant disappointment, or worse, resentment. The Stoic does not hate people for trying to control. He sees the source: confusion, pain, and fear, and he does not excuse their actions, but neither does he grant them power. To understand this is to stop being surprised when people act manipulatively and to stop personalizing it when they do. In a world where direct control is often limited, especially in relationships with equals, people resort to subtler forms: emotional leverage, passive aggression, flattery used as currency, withholding affection to create imbalance, even gossip, a form of soft coercion designed to isolate and destabilize. When someone cannot move you with force, they will try to move you with pressure, and pressure, if you are not prepared, can be more dangerous than force. But here is the key: they do this because it works on most people, not because others are weak, but because they are unaware. When you are unaware of your own needs, your own fears, your own boundaries, you are vulnerable to those who would mold your behavior through manipulation. The Stoic does not respond with defensiveness. He responds with stillness, with internal clarity. He asks, why is this person doing this? What are they afraid of? What do they seek to gain? And then he asks, am I truly obligated to respond? Often the answer is no. To understand why others seek control is to begin detaching from their attempts, not to become cold, but to become free. For once you see their actions as expressions of their own inner disorder, you realize it was never really about you, it was about them. Always, the Stoic response to external attempts at control. There will come a moment when someone close to you, a friend, a partner, a parent, a colleague, will say something that sounds innocent, even kind, but is in fact a quiet demand, a test of obedience, a thread of manipulation woven through the language of concern. I just thought you'd care more. After everything I've done for you, you've changed. And suddenly, the ground beneath you shifts, not from violence, not from threat, but from pressure, emotional leverage dressed as conversation. The Stoic recognizes this moment for what it is, an attempt, whether conscious or not, to exert control. What should you do? First, pause. The untrained mind reacts. The trained mind reflects. You don't owe anyone a performance of guilt. You don't owe an immediate response. You owe yourself clarity. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. When someone uses guilt or manipulation, it only works if you agree to play the part they've written for you. The Stoic refuses the role, not with cruelty, not with anger, but with steadiness. You do not need to justify your boundaries to those who benefit from you not having any. This is not detachment for its own sake. It is discernment. You do not harden yourself to others. You harden yourself against distortion. You must know what is yours, your choices, your integrity, your reason, and you must know what is theirs. Their expectations, their emotions, their tactics. Epictetus taught that no one can harm you unless you consent to be harmed, not because harm isn't real, but because what truly wounds the soul is not what others do, but how we choose to see it. If someone calls you selfish because you said no, is it true? If not, why be shaken? If it is, then be grateful for the mirror and improve, but never allow someone's opinion, no matter how close they are to you, to override your internal compass. Imagine a friend invites you to a party. You decline, politely, clearly, for your own reasons. They respond, "Wow, I guess I know where I stand now." This is a tactic. It's not a request. It's a hook, baited with guilt. The Stoic does not bite. The Stoic simply acknowledges, this person is disappointed. That is their right. But their disappointment is not my debt. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you honest. And honesty, though often uncomfortable, is the cleanest form of love. The one who cannot be manipulated, who remains kind but unmoved, becomes something rare in this world. Someone whose soul is not on lease. Someone who cannot be rented through praise or threatened through silence. This is the fruit of Stoicism, not indifference, but inner sovereignty, freedom, within constraints, how to preserve your integrity. There are times when doing what is right will cost you something. Comfort, approval, money, even relationships. The world does not always reward integrity. Often, it resists it, because integrity is inconvenient. It cannot be manipulated, it cannot be bought, it cannot be reshaped to fit others' needs. And so, the one who chooses to live with integrity must do so knowing the terrain will be uneven. The Stoic does not expect ease. He expects tension. But he also understands this. A mind aligned with its values is freer in a prison than a corrupt mind is in a palace. Consider the modern workplace again. A colleague is cutting corners. You're asked to look the other way. No one will know, they say. It's how things are done. If you speak up, you might lose influence, trust, maybe even your position. But if you stay silent, you lose something far more important, alignment with yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Simple words. But when money or relationships are involved, simplicity becomes strength. In that moment, you are not choosing between comfort and discomfort. You are choosing between coherence and fracture, the kind of fracture that grows inside, silent but corrosive. Freedom in the Stoic sense is not the absence of restraint. It is the capacity to live in accordance with reason and virtue, no matter the conditions. You may not be able to speak freely in every setting, but you can refuse to lie. You may not control your employer's decisions, but you can choose not to betray your values to please them. That is integrity, not a posture, but a series of consistent, invisible decisions. Epictetus, born a slave, crippled by his master, was perhaps the clearest on this point. He taught that no one can enslave a man who is committed to his own moral purpose. He said no man is free who is not master of himself. His chains were real, but so was his freedom. Because he refused to surrender his judgment to fear, you will be tested. A friend will expect loyalty over honesty. A client will expect silence over truth. A family member will want you to fit a role that no longer serves who you are. In each of these moments, you will face a quiet question. Do I betray myself to maintain peace, or do I stay firm, even if the peace breaks? The Stoic chooses firmness, and not out of pride, but principle, because the cost of external discomfort is nothing compared to the slow erosion of self-respect. To preserve your integrity, you must know what you stand for before you're tested. Write it down, speak it aloud, and when the storm comes, you won't need to shout. You will simply stand, and that will be enough. The art of detachment, the power of indifference. Most people are not controlled by chains or laws. They are controlled by praise, by rejection, by what others think of them, the desire to be liked, the fear of being misunderstood, the ache for validation. These are the invisible strings that move people, not through force, but through silent expectation. And as long as you need the approval of others, you are not free. The Stoics offer an alternative, detachment, or more precisely, apatheia, freedom from passion, from being ruled by emotions that override reason. But this is not emotional numbness. It is emotional clarity, a refusal to grant external things the power to disturb your inner stability. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by sycophants, betrayal, and constant public scrutiny, reminded himself, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. He was pointing to the radical idea that offense is a choice, Manipulation is a choice, or at least its effectiveness is. You are not obligated to be moved just because someone pushes. This is the essence of Stoic indifference. Not that all things are equal, but that only some things matter. Only virtue is good. Only vice is bad. Everything else, reputation, wealth, health, status, rejection, affection, is indifferent. You can prefer some over others, sure, but your soul does not depend on them. Imagine this in a modern situation. You decline a social invitation and someone responds with passive aggression. Oh, I see how it is. The old you might rush to explain, apologize, soothe, not because you did something wrong, but because you couldn't bear the idea of being seen as unkind. The Stoic pauses. He sees the ploy for what it is, an attempt to manipulate perception to gain compliance, and he remains unmoved, not unkind, but unshaken. He doesn't explain more than needed. He doesn't plead to be understood. He accepts misunderstanding as part of the cost of living freely. Detachment is not withdrawing from life. It is entering life on your terms, fully present, but not owned. You love, but you do not cling. You speak, but you do not perform. You give, but you do not trade. And when someone tries to move you with guilt or pressure, you see clearly, they are using their tools. I do not need to pick them up. This is why the Stoics spoke often of the view from above. Picture yourself from high above, a speck in the vast movement of time. Will this moment of manipulation, this conflict, this opinion, matter in 5 years? In death? If not, why allow it to master you now? To be indifferent is not to be passive. It is to be precise. You conserve your attention. You guard your energy. You protect your peace not by building walls, but by choosing where and with whom you engage. When you can no longer be baited, guilted, or flattered into submission, you become something rare, a person who lives by principle, not by reaction, and that is the true power of detachment. How others view your strength. Reactions to an uncontrolled spirit. There is a strange reaction people have to someone who cannot be controlled. At first it's curiosity, then discomfort. Eventually it becomes one of two things: respect or resentment. To live with integrity, to stand firm in your principles without becoming defensive or aggressive. This threatens those who have not yet faced themselves. Your presence becomes a mirror, not by anything you say, not by judgment, but simply by existing as someone who does not bend for approval, does not yield to pressure, does not sacrifice clarity for comfort. Some will admire this, silently. They will not always say it out loud, but inside they will feel it. This person cannot be bought. And in a world addicted to performance and compliance, that kind of authenticity is like water in a desert. Others, however, will feel exposed. You are no longer predictable. You no longer react the way they've come to expect. The guilt they once used no longer lands. The praise they once dangled holds no sway. You do not flatter, you do not appease, you do not pretend. And to those who rely on control, emotional, social, or otherwise, this is deeply unsettling. Seneca warned of this. A great man is one who is not swayed by the clamor of the crowd, nor by its silence. But this greatness comes at a cost. The crowd often resents what it cannot move. They will accuse you of being cold, arrogant, selfish, even disloyal, not because you've harmed them, but because you've stopped being useful to their unspoken needs. This is not cynicism, it is clarity. And with that clarity comes peace. Consider a family dynamic where one person always plays the fixer. The one who keeps the peace absorbs the tension, makes sacrifices for harmony. The moment they stop, not angrily, just quietly, firmly, the family system reacts. Some may lash out, others may withdraw. It is not personal. It is structural. When you remove your part in the old game, others must face their own role in it. Not all are ready for that. The Stoic accepts this. He does not require universal understanding. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Others' perceptions are outside events. Your role is not to manage their comfort. Your role is to live justly, speak honestly, and remain inwardly unshaken. Over time, those who value truth will draw closer. Those who only value control will drift away, and you will find yourself surrounded, maybe by fewer people, but by stronger bonds. Because true connection is not built on control, it is built on mutual respect and the shared understanding that each person owns themselves. In the end, the world respects what it cannot move, even if it resents it at first. Stand still long enough, and even the wind will move around you.